message that ultimately comes from you, Father, and not from us. Father, I just thank you. As Don prayed earlier, I just thank you for your word that you've left with us, Father, and that you've given us to guide us, Father. And I just thank you that we're able to grow in this word through these sermons. Father, just once again, just be with Brian and bless him. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Thank you. Okay, is this on? Is this working? I think I hit the on button. No, that'll do. All right. I have a loud enough voice if it's not working anyways. Californians were born with loud voices. So I want to say, everybody, happy Super Bowl day. For me, growing up, this was another holiday in my house. Pretty much another Thanksgiving. So a whole bunch of food, platters. So being in Boise, I don't get that with California anymore. So I do miss home during the Super Bowl time. But before I go with the sermon, I just want to explain just a little bit more about myself. I do go to Boise Bible College. I'm majoring in preaching with a minor in Greek. So my life's a little busy. I work 30 hours a week at my job. I'm interning at a church down there for 15 more hours while going to school full time. So the only time I'm ever home is to sleep on my air mattress. I'm 23. I'm a junior. I got one more year of Bible college and then I have no idea what's after that. People ask me, are you going back to California? Are you going to stay in Idaho? I'm saying, I don't know. God can move me to Florida. I hope not, but He could. So, as I do go to Boise Bible College, I'm not from Boise, I'm actually Californian. I'm from Modesto, California. And if any of you have ever been to Modesto, it's a terrible area. Try and stay away from it. I think the only good thing that came out of Modesto was George Lucas, just made Star Wars. So that's pretty much the only good thing there. And I didn't grow up going to church, actually. I didn't start going to church until high school, and I only went because of a girl. And God used it very much, just latched on to me. And then after high school, I went to the workforce. I was a CNA for a couple of years working in a nursing home. Very wonderful job. But then I transitioned to construction worker, completely opposite, where I was jackhammering a lot. And that's where God was calling me. One day I was feeling just really depressed and sad, and I was just jackhammering some random slab of concrete because my boss had nothing to do for me, and they just wanted the income out of me, so they just said, go jackhammer that slab. So I'm like, this is my life. So I was, in that moment, I was like, man, God, what do you have for me right now? And in that moment, I felt God saying, I want you to quit your job. I want you to go into ministry. And I said, no. I'm like, no, thank you. I'd rather jackhammer this concrete slab. But eventually I started going crazy, and I called the main office for the construction company that I was in, and it was a huge construction company, thousands of workers. So I called them and said, hey, I want to quit my job, I want to go into the ministry. And the guy said, oh, I'm very proud of you, I'm a Christian too, but if you want to quit, you don't need to do a 2-week notice. We have thousands of employees, we can replace you tomorrow. I was like, oh, thanks for making me feel special. So, quit on the spot. I didn't have a job for a good 3 months, and then my church offered me a janitor position with the church, and so that got me in the door, and then from there it turned into a youth ministry internship where I got to meet my girlfriend and her mom and her whole family. And that's when I just felt God saying, I need you to pursue this. So I just said, all right, I'm going to go to a Bible college, Boise, Idaho, let's do it. And from there, it's been just a fun battle ever since. I'm not going to say it was easy. It's been a lot of difficult times. I think every semester has come with some trouble in it. But right now it's leading me to preach to you guys, and I absolutely love preaching. This is a complete passion for me, and I hope you guys get to see that today. So that's who I am. So if I ever come back and preach for you guys now, you can know my crazy life story and how I've gotten to this point. So, but one thing I like to call myself is an athlete. You know, I love sports. I love everything about sports. As you can ask them, I'm a huge football fanatic.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of football information up here that does no good in life. I just talk to people. I could talk football for hours. And I'm a huge 49er fan, so I've had a pretty terrible year. But also, the worst part of my life starts tomorrow, and that is the football off season, where I don't know what to do with my life. I just look at news to see if there's any new updates, and it's just always the same stuff. So tomorrow I'm going to be pretty depressed, so if you guys would pray for that. But I like to call myself an athlete. I work hard, I train, I'm disciplined. I try and exercise as much as possible. I try and play basketball with the school, try and play football whenever I can. I like to consider myself an athlete. But one thing that is very important as an athlete is you have to know the rules of the game that you're playing. So when I'm playing basketball, I have to know the rules. I just can't come in and do prison rules where I'm just elbowing everybody in their face trying to get the ball. And when it comes to football, I can't spear somebody at the knee and tear the ligaments like they did to me in high school. But as an athlete, you've got to know the rules. And that is what Paul tells Timothy in 2 Timothy chapter 2. If you guys want to flip there, that's where I'm going to be preaching from. I should flip there too. So in 2 Timothy, starting with verse 5, he says, if anyone competes as an athlete, he does not receive the victor's crown unless he competes according to the rules. Just to let you guys know, I'm preaching from the NIV today. I preached for a church in Pineville, Oregon one time, and I actually preached from NASB, and it was just because I really enjoyed the NASB translation for the text I was preaching. And at the end of it, she comes up to me and goes, it's about time somebody preaches from a really good translation. I'm like, oh, sorry, I normally use NIV. So my self-esteem's a little low every time I use NIV because of that moment. But, so he says, the athlete cannot receive the victor's crown unless he competes to the rule. The athlete cannot, if I may, lift up the Lombardi trophy of heaven unless he competes according to the rules. But the question is, what is the rules? Paul just says, follow the rules, but what is that? Before I go into it, I just want to give a little background of this information, of this text. So this letter is written by Paul, apostle. Paul was a Christian persecutor, and Jesus came to him on the road to Damascus and converted him and told him one of the greatest sayings ever. You have taught my people how to suffer. I'm going to show you what it means to suffer for me. So that'll come back later. And then he's writing to Timothy. People have associated with Timothy as being very timid, kind of weak, kind of scared, easily, doesn't really have a spine. And Paul just is always encouraging him. And so that's what he's doing in this letter. So he says to Timothy, be like an athlete. And this is very common for Paul. Actually, in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 25 through 26, he says, do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only gets a prize? Run in such a way as to get a prize. Everyone who competes in the games goes into strict training. They do it to get a crown that will last, but we do it to get a crown that will last forever. So he's saying, as an athlete, to get that crown that lasts forever, you have to follow the rules. To get that Lombardi in the sky, you got to follow the rules. So that comes back to the question, what are the rules? And where can you find the rules? Well, my answer to that is this.
Amen.
But here's the thing, don't get me wrong, I'm not calling this our rule book. I don't want to use it as, I'm going to use some football lingo for you guys today so you can understand what's going on in the Super Bowl. But this isn't used as a rule book to where you see somebody sitting, where you're standing there like, you've had 2 glasses of wine today, I'm gonna throw the penalty flag. Yeah, that's a 15-yard penalty. That means you're 15 yards closer to hell. Okay, have a great day. Or you see somebody like, I'm a sinner of this. That's a California stop, California roll. I'm going to throw the challenge flag on that one to see if that is a sin. Yes, it is. I'm sorry. You have to come back. So that is not what this is used for. This isn't used to just keep, throwing it in people's faces, just saying, yeah, you're a sinner. Yeah, you did this wrong. You did this wrong. This is the story of Jesus. Beginning to end, this is Jesus' story. This is how we got to Jesus, why we need Jesus, and the salvation that comes with Jesus.
Amen.
But as this is a story of Jesus, we do get some rules out of it, some way of living, some ways that we can just be better Christians, better followers, and better disciples, and better disciple makers. So Paul gives Timothy some rules in here to follow by. And he does it in chapter 2 with 3 metaphors, 3 people. So the first one that he says in verse 3, going backwards a little bit, it says, endure hardship with us like a good soldier of Christ Jesus. No one serving as a soldier gets involved in civilian affairs. He wants to please his commanding officer. So he says, endure hardship. It's one of the first rules. Endure. Some of your translations might say suffer. Endure means to suffer. You see, a soldier, he's going to suffer. He's going to go in, he's going to suffer his body during the physical training. He's going to suffer during the camps, and he's going to suffer when he goes to the overseas and fights for his country. He's going to suffer for his family. He's going to suffer for this country. Now, I don't know if any of you guys are veterans here. If you are, thank you so much for your endurance. Thank you so much for your service.
Amen.
But that's what he's saying. He's saying, be like the soldier. Endure. Suffer. And the soldier here, it's in the Greek, it's like in the active tense, which means this is happening right now. So being a soldier, it means you are currently on your deployment. You're currently on your mission. You're currently suffering. So he's saying, Timothy, endure. Be that soldier. A soldier doesn't back down. A soldier doesn't surrender. Doesn't run away. So he's saying, be like that soldier. Suffer. Because he doesn't get involved with civilian affairs. So a soldier, when he's over there, he has one mission, and that's his main goal. He doesn't let what the Kardashians are doing lately get in the way of him. He doesn't let what these Facebook posts get in the way. They do their mission. They don't care. They don't let this world swallow them up. They don't let this world grab them and say, no, you should be doing this. It's like, no, I have a mission. And that's to please my commanding officer. So Timothy, please your commanding officer. Be like that soldier. Suffer. And then he says, be like the athlete. You have to follow the rules to get the victor's crown. Now, like I said before, Paul uses this athlete metaphor quite a bit, but he actually uses it to Timothy back in chapter 1 and chapter 4, or first letter of Timothy, chapter 4, verse 8. He says, for physical training is of some value, but godliness has value for all things. So this athletics metaphor is very common for Timothy, that when Paul writes it to him, so I can only come up with one conclusion of why this is, and that's because I'm pretty sure Timothy is ripped. Pretty sure this man is like typical guy you see like at the gym, just have this shaker bottle with protein. Pretty sure Timothy has like that 6-pack Greek statue body. People call him timid, but when I read this, I'm like, Paul had to put this for some reason. I'm pretty sure Timothy is a trainer. I'm pretty sure he's pretty ripped. That's why I like Timothy. But so he says this, but also the background of this is, and it's kind of hard for us to step foot into the context. It's hard for us to step back into the Greco-Roman era. But back then, athletics was a pretty big deal. Cities, they loved their arenas. They loved their cities. There was a lot of pride there. And their athletes were very honored, highly honored, probably paid like crazy. I tell you, we can't step foot into that world at all. And Paul was probably also talking about the Olympiad here, talking about the Olympics. So, saying if you want to be in this type of environment, if you want to be like the athlete, you got to follow the rules. Now, we don't know if the rules mean the 10-month physical training, the 10-month training to even qualify for the games, or the rules while you're currently playing the game. But the difference between the two does not change the application, and that's an athlete has discipline. The athlete is going to stick to what he needs to do to get that goal. The athlete is going to try his hardest day and night training to get that crown. The athlete, like the athletes today, they have one goal in mind, and that is to get the trophy. So Timothy, be disciplined. Follow the rules. Compete. Train. Physical training has some value, but godliness has value for all things. So suffer like the soldier. Be disciplined like the athlete. And the next one, the hardworking farmer should be the first to receive a share of the crops. The farmer is the next one. See, a farmer, he's going to have faith. He's going to keep the faith in the crops that he's sown, the seeds that he put in the ground. He's going to have faith that something big is going to come out of it. But day and night, he is working hard to keep the crops going. He's not going to let El Nino come and take what he's worked at. He's going to try his hardest to get those crops to come. And when they do come, he gets the first of the pick. He gets to see what he has worked hard for. He gets to reap the benefits of the crops that he's sown. So we're saying, Timothy, be like that farmer. Sow some seeds and receive the benefit of it. Work hard. Keep the faith. Don't just plant something and walk away and go, you know, I quit, I'm done. I don't want it anymore. He's saying, keep it. Keep the faith of those seeds. See what's going to come out of it and reap the benefits. So those are our rules. Be like the soldier. Be like the athlete. Be like the farmer. And you will receive the crown. And Paul then tells Timothy, starting with verse 11, what's going to happen because of it. He says, here's a trustworthy saying. If we died with him, we will also live with him. If we endure, we will also reign with him. If we disown him, he will also disown us. If we are faithless, he will remain faithful, for he cannot disown himself. So it starts, if we died with him, we will also live with him. If we endure, if we are disciplined, if we keep the faith and be hardworking, that means we're going to die with him. See, Paul's not talking about a physical death. He's not talking about a martyr's death. Even though Paul himself is in prison when he's writing this and being martyred, and will soon see his death because of it. And even Timothy actually is martyred. According to old tradition, my professor was telling me that Eusebius has a tale of Timothy when he was an old man. There was a parade in Ephesus for their god Artemis. And as the parade was going through, Timothy got in the middle of the street as an old man who still, I'm pretty sure, has a six-pack. As an old man, stops the parade. Just stops it, and in that moment, just starts preaching the gospel. And in that moment, they killed him. So from his last breath, he died with them. But again, this isn't talking about that physical death. It's talking about a spiritual death. You know, if we endure, if we suffer for discipline, we're going to die with them. We're going to say bye to our old self. Kill our old self off, and we're going to live this new life, this life with Christ. See, this is actually reflecting on the baptism that we all received in Christ. You know, when we were baptized under the water, we are dead. You can't breathe in the water. That signifies the death of Christ. And when you come up, your first breath is, that's your first breath with Christ. Your first breath living with Christ. So if you have died with him, you're going to live with him. As you go down and you come up to that new life, you're now with Christ. So you have to say goodbye to the old. Hello to the new things that God is doing for you. You have to say, hey, God, one of these days I'm going to be preaching for a church in Embler, Oregon. I don't even know where that's at. The new that's coming. Then it says, if we endure, we will reign with him. If we suffer, we will reign. And like I said before, Paul, as he was converted, Christ told him, I will show you what it means to suffer for me. And Paul's life was suffering. He was stoned. He was beat, just preaching the gospel, making disciples. And I flipped the page. If you look back to verse 8, he says, remember Jesus Christ, raised from the dead, descended for David. This is my gospel for which I am suffering, even to the point of being chained like a criminal. So Paul is enduring. So he's saying, Timothy, endure. Tell those people in Ephesus, endure. As these false teachers in Ephesus are trying to get you or trying to get a hold of you, endure, suffer. For I am suffering for you. I am suffering for Christ. And in the end, I'm going to reign. This is talking about the last days. This reigning is reigning with Christ in heaven. This reigning is I'm going to receive the crown. But then this goes into a little bit of a negative tone. He says, if we disown him, he will also disown us. If we are faithless, he will remain faithful, for he cannot disown himself. So, if we choose not to die with him, if we choose not to suffer, if we choose not to be disciplined, if we choose not to be hardworking and keeping in the faith, then we're disowning him. If we're just saying, yeah, I'm a Christian, but if we're not doing anything about it, we're disowning him. If we just turn our backs to him, we are disowning him. And Jesus himself promised us, if that's the case, he's going to have to disown us. It's not something he wants to do, but it's something he has to do. So if we disown him, he will disown us. And I don't want to be one of the people who come up to the gate and say, go away, I never knew you. Paul doesn't want Timothy to be that man. Paul doesn't want to be that man. Christ doesn't want us to be that person. So we can't disown him. We have to listen to the rules. We have to compete according to the rules. Because if we are faithless, no matter what, no matter how much faith people are lacking, no matter how much disowning happens, he will always remain faithful. His promise will always be there. He will always be there to encourage people, for the people who are owning him, the people who are suffering for him. No matter what he does, he's faithful. The biggest faith that I ever had was Jesus. And he has faith in us. And he will remain faithful to us if we listen. Because you can't disown himself. So those are the rules. That's what we need to do. We need to be the soldier, guys. We need to suffer. We need to fight for our families. We need to fight for God's family. We need to suffer for the kingdom. We can't give up. We can't retreat. Try and run away from God. See how far you go. You're not going to go that far. We need to be like the athlete. We got to be disciplined. We got to practice every day at it. We got to train for it. Then we got to be like the farmer. We got to keep the faith. Because sometimes you're going to sow some seeds, and sometimes nothing's going to come out of it. Last night at dinner, I found out that there's a certain type of corn, or when you plant corn, you put 3 in, and sometimes 1 comes up, sometimes none come up, sometimes all 3 come up. But one of the hardest things about ministry that I've learned is you don't really get to see a lot of your seed being sown. Sometimes we're the stepping stone to somebody receiving salvation later, and that's a little discouraging sometimes that we don't get to see the hard work that we have, but in the end we will. In the end, we eventually will get to see our hard work. In the end, we will get to see the crops. We get to see the first of the crops. So we need to be like the farmer. And I love the way Paul ends this letter in chapter 4. He says, starting in verse 6, "For I am already being poured out like a drink offering, and the time has come for my departure. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith." He says, I have fought the good fight. Who fights for us? The soldier. I have finished the race. Athlete. And I have kept the faith. Farmer. Then he says, now there is in store for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day. And this is the best part, guys. And not only to me, but also to those who have longed for his appearing. That crown is waiting for us. But we're not just going to sit down, watch The Biggest Loser, and get it. We have to be active. We have to be the soldier. We have to be the athlete. And we have to be the farmer. Those are the rules that we have to compete with. Will you guys pray with me? Dear Heavenly Father, Jesus, thank you for remaining faithful no matter how much faith we are lacking, no matter how much faith this world is lacking. Jesus, we long to compete according to your rules. We long to suffer for you. We long to be disciplined for you, and we long to keep the faith. But in those moments where this world is trying to grab us, where this world is trying to swallow us up, Jesus, just remind us of that crown, the Lombardi trophy in the sky that is waiting for us. Jesus, because we want that crown. We pray this in your precious name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much.